Welcome to the Yankee and Canuck podcast, Best Picture Series, where we talk about all the Academy Award Best Pictures, past to present.
And I'm your host, a Yankee.
And I'm your host, a Canuck.
And today we're going to be talking about Citizen Kane. All right, this is considered one of the best films of all time, written and directed by Orson Welles. I think that it really is probably one of the greatest films of all time in terms of achievement. It is a beautiful film. Cinematography is absolutely groundbreaking. It's wonderful. It's a pretty simple story. It's really about this tycoon who builds like this press mill or something like that, newspaper mill, and he ends up, dominating an entire industry and has an entire fall from grace towards the end. It's an amazing film when you really look at it.
How dare you, sir?
What?
How Green Was My Valley was the winner that year.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, I believe it was.
No. What are you talking about? What is that? How Green Was My Valley? What is that?
Well, it's a movie that won, and then they changed the title for marketing purposes. It was called The Movie That Beat Citizen Kane.
You're lying, sir.
It's true. Look it up.
Okay, no. Wait, hold on. No, Citizen Kane won. I swear to God,
Sir, you are mistaken.
What the No. Are you kidding me? Are you telling me Son of a bitch. Okay. Could you hold the fort? I'll be right back. Hold on a second.
Sure, I got this. We're having some technical difficulties here. It seems that Yankee covered the wrong movie. How Green Was My Valley. The film is basically a telling of a story from the perspective of the eldest son, Hugh, and it's kind of looking back on his childhood in the valley in Wales and the events that essentially shaped his life and his family and everyone around him, the town, and it's telling of the story of the town before he gets up and leaves as an adult. That's essentially the movie. Throw in some family dynamics, a little bit of personal and collective struggles, and some tragedy, ups and downs, and that's the film.
Okay, I had to do a power read of this book, because apparently it's based on a book, and I had to watch the film.
Book, that quick?
Yeah, I had to. I mean, I had to really speed run through it, and I had to watch the film on 100 times speed. Because, I'm embarrassed. I really thought it was Citizen Kane. It turns out it was this. So, yeah, I think I'm ready to go. I think I know what happened.
And you call yourself a professional?
I am, sir. I just read a whole book in, 10 seconds.
So but to be fair, Citizen Kane was nominated for 9 awards. Didn't win. It only won, I think, Best Screenplay, but obviously controversial. It didn't win Best Picture. How Green Was My Valley won.
Yeah, it's a bunch of horse because really, the only reason why it lost, well, a couple of reasons why it lost, is because William Randolph Hearst was campaigning against the movie like hardcore because he owned like a newspaper or whatever. So he didn't like the fact that, it was supposedly based on him. So he had sour grapes about that. And the Academy was just like, well, we can't have controversy, so let's just pick How Green Was My Valley. That's a safe choice. That's John Ford. Everyone loves John Ford. Let's just go ahead and vote for that. So I mean, it's a travesty, honestly, when you really think about it, because Citizen Kane, for all intents and purposes, it is a really good film.
It is, yeah.
I mean, because the story may not be quite up to snuff in some areas, and it could be kind of bloated and go on a little bit too long, but as an achievement in filmmaking, it is amazing. Orson Welles did some 100%. Incredible stuff in that thing, and the performances 100%. Are great, and the fact that he acted in the thing, directed in the thing, he wrote the thing or co-wrote the thing, it's a great achievement.
Agreed, yeah. I mean, as far as How Green Was My Valley, look, am I surprised that it was nominated? Not really. I think it's a decent film. Obviously, like you said, John Ford, acclaimed director. It's worth noting that I think this was his 3rd Best Director award, which I think the only person who ever had that feat was Frank Capra, at the time at least. And Ford actually ended up winning 4, which I think is the record even now. So, should it have won is a whole other entire question. I don't think so, like you said. But, oh well, gotta get over it. People are still upset about it. I was looking online, and people are like, still disbelief 85 years later. And, there's a lot of films that shouldn't have won over others, but it is what it is.
Well, this is one of the most egregious examples of that, I feel, because, honestly, to this day, Citizen Kane is still referenced. Famously in The Simpsons, it's constantly referenced. It's just like, it's one of those films that did something, and it just captured the zeitgeist in such a way where it's still relevant. Whereas How Green Was My Valley, what? I never even heard of this thing before. You know, it's just like that thing won, really. But like you said, I mean, it's just not unique. But this to me was the first instance of it being like, hold on a minute, hold on, what are
Yeah.
you talking about?
I really wonder what people thought at the time. Like if they were all really shocked too, or some people were, not surprised. I'm curious to see what people back in the day would have thought. But honestly, in my opinion, the my favorite movie out of that year was actually The Maltese Falcon,
Yeah, I was going to mention
which
that
is
was
a
another one that was
good movie.
nominated.
Yeah, that's a John Huston. That was his first film, I think, and with Humphrey Bogart as the PI. And so I've seen that movie before. That's a pretty damn good movie. It really kicked off the noir genre, and entertaining. A lot of classic one-liners in it, famous ones, and so yeah. I mean, I think that an argument could be made that that should have won, but obviously most people would say Citizen Kane. But
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't go wrong with either one, I feel, but yeah, you could definitely go wrong with this one, though. All right, well, another thing before we move on, actually, is that this is the first time where the Best Picture nomination, the category name, it went through many different changes, but this is the first ceremony where it went from Outstanding Production to Outstanding Motion Picture. And it's going to be like that until 1943. Then it's going to go through another name change. But this is the first instance of that.
eventually leading to Best Picture.
Well, no, there was another category after that, and then
There's another one,
you
right?
get Best Picture.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
It's all the same.
yeah, no, it's,
They just couldn't make up their mind.
yeah, they really were just like still figuring stuff out. Yeah, so like always, I read the source material before watching the movie.
Right now.
Yeah, I had to really like
You
I
did
said,
it right now, folks.
I sped through this thing, and that was a difficult read because of all the Welsh names in there, all the different relationships. The way it was written is not very good. It's one of those books where, it has its fans, just like Rebecca does, the previous one that we did. And when I was reading this thing, I was just like, okay, there's a chapter, and it's in the film too, where the main character, Hugh, who's a little kid, goes to school and he gets bullied by a kid.
Yep.
And they go outside in the schoolyard, and he's got a pencil box, right? And the bully breaks his pencil box, and then they fight. Pretty straightforward scene in the film, right? In the book, it goes on too long. There's paragraphs, the couple of different paragraphs describing the goddamn pencil box. I was like, what? Okay, you really like this pencil box. And then it finally got broken, and in the most poetic way, it was like, and then I got angry, and then I had to fight. I was just like, oh, it just felt like someone who just took a very simple idea and stretched it just so it could fill a few pages in this chapter. Just because I guess they were told, like, hey, this is a great idea, but you need to stretch it as long as you can.
Maximize description of pencil box.
Yeah, exactly. And then the anger and the way the anger is described is very poetic, and I don't know. This is one of those things where, like, listen, some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it. This is just one of those things. There are people that really like the book. They really like the way the characters are written. They really like the story. They think it's touching, and they're like, oh, it's almost as if we're there, and this or that. And I'm all like, I didn't feel that way at all. I just felt like I was in prison. I was forced to see through the bars in my prison window the lives of these people passing by, and I'm like, just kill me already.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely scenes that are moving and there's some power in some of the sequences, but I mean, to feel like you're there, I don't know about that. I don't know where you live. Like what?
I felt like that more when watching the actual film, because you have actual pictures, you have actual stuff you're looking at. But yeah, even then, the movie also has like problems with length. It drags a lot, especially like the first part of the film is fine, I feel. I'm like, okay, so far this is better than the book. Like, we're getting to the point, we're getting the characters all down, whatever. Then at some point it just drags, and it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. And it felt like that all the way to the end until we finally get a little bit more action, like a little dramatic thing that happens in the end, which we'll get into. But I don't know, man. This felt just so droning and boring, and I was just like, why do people like this? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said to you earlier, the first 15 minutes were once again like, oh man, and I actually turned it off because I knew to make it through this movie at that moment, you can be a little tired. or anything like that.
You
So
need copious amounts of caffeine.
exactly, I returned later, well rested, caffeinated, problem solved. Then I made it through the movie, no problem. And the first 15 minutes are kind of problematic in many ways, but it does pick up, and then it like, okay, here we go. There's something going on. There's characters. Here we go, and so
Yeah, and yeah, that's another thing too. There's too many characters, I feel, to the point where you get kind of lost in figuring out who's who, especially in the book, because they have these Welsh names, and there's like at the very end of the book, there's like a pronunciation table or whatever you call it, and it's just like, and it tells you how to pronounce these names, and you're just like, oh, okay, whatever. But you know, you could still get kind of lost, and
yeah,
it's just really the sheer amount of characters, and unfortunately, with the exception of maybe a couple, they virtually have the same personality. So I don't know, I didn't really vibe with most of the characters, really any of the characters. I mean, because at some point you do get a character that's a boxer, you do get the preacher character who's a pretty prominent character in the book. I forgot his name, and of course you have the main character Hugh, who everything is in his perspective. You know, this is all about him just being like, oh, back in my day, you know, we had this little mining town and we all went to work, but then we decided to strike because we weren't treated fair. And I don't know why I'm talking like he's a Southern. He's just a Welsh kid, but but yeah, that's the whole story all the way to the end where he's an old man and he decides to leave the valley because he's just like, ain't nothing for me here. As a matter of fact, in the opening for the film is actually the ending for the book, which I thought was interesting.
Okay, I didn't know that.
The narration is actually the last few lines of the book. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But other than that, there was not much interesting. I mean, every so often you get into the mining stuff, and the mining stuff, especially towards the end, is pretty interesting. Because you get the child labor, because everyone's getting screwed. The company's screwing the workers in the town. At first, they were just like paying them 1 pence less. And then they were just, you know, they were trying to organize and try to unionize. And then they decided, you know what, we're not going to hire you. We're going to hire these other workers that are cheaper and more desperate.
They started laying off.
Yeah, exactly.
Several of the brothers got laid off. And yeah, as far as you mentioned the characters, I mean, I definitely agree. Some of the characters do stand out. Like you said, the minister, the boxer. I would say the father and even the sister to some degree.
The father probably more so.
And there's and there's some memorable scenes there. You know, obviously it has its issues as well, but even though some of the characters stand out, there isn't a whole lot of character development, right?
No.
And like you said, too many characters. I think it really comes down to too many siblings. I mean, you could have replaced one or two of the brothers. So there's 6 of them. You could have replaced one or two of them, got rid of them, and just put a dog in it or something. I mean, that's all you needed to do. And
a mining dog, I would have loved that.
There you go. So, I mean, yeah, movie was, I don't know, you know, it's once again, it's one of these movies that good cinematography. You know, you say that all the time, and it's true. I mean, and as we know, some of the scenes really have some effect, you know, in black and white and like the mine sequences and.
Well, let's get into let's get into more specific detail. So when it comes to the actual cinematography, generally we would say that these films are well shot for the most part.
They are, yeah.
But this is a John Ford film. John Ford is famous for his shots. He's famous for his framing, you know.
Yeah.
So hence why he won Academy Award for Best Director like how many times? 3, 4 times?
4 times total. That's the most in history.
There you go. So I mean, like that means this guy was doing something right. So when you look at the film, you know, because of the sheer amount of characters in there, because there are times where there's a lot of characters in the frame, like mobs and mobs of people either marching from the mine or they're just like congregated in a small space because they're partying or they're in a church or there's some sort of
town. I mean,
riot
it's a small
or something.
town. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
You get a real sense that this town is lively. It's full of people. It's full of desperate people at that. So in terms of capturing that emotion, I think John Ford does a great job with that. And he is pretty much a master at corralling all these actors together and dictating, okay, this actor is going to do this, and this actor is going to do that. It's going to culminate into this scene, and therefore everyone is going to do this. It's like John Ford was like a sheep herder. He's herding all the sheep together. It's a little choreographed dance. So when you watch the final product, you feel like, okay, this feels real. I give him that, you know. Because otherwise it's a dull story and the characters don't really do much of anything. So when you look at the film, you're just like, nothing much is going on. But when these big scenes happen, you're like, oh, okay, this is actually interesting. Visually, it's interesting. So at least he was really good at that. So with that, I mean, I feel like
agree.
I think he earned his directorial Oscar because of that alone. You know, like one
Yeah, but then
instant.
you can still make the argument that Orson Welles with Citizen Kane, he did enough to win Best Director as well, right?
I
So
was going to get to that too because ultimately, on a normal Oscar year, John Ford winning this would be fine. But when you're up against Citizen Kane, I'm sorry, man. Step aside. Orson Welles did it better. He did it better. He did it more memorable, at least with Citizen Kane. So, I mean, like, it's like no amount of characters or bodies on screen will compare to what Citizen Kane did. Like the opening shot of Citizen Kane with the camera going in through the house, turns around, and then you can see there's a wall there. Like they quickly put it back together. It gives that illusion that you're kind of like a spirit or something, kind of like gliding through and turning around, and it feels so seamless, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, yeah, so on that level, it's a travesty, but what can you do?
yeah, I mean, there's I know you dislike this movie a lot.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just definitely has its issues. I think it's kind of cohesive, but it's also disjointed in a way, if that makes sense. Like you go in this movie from scene to scene, and a lot of times there's something lacking in between it, right? I would have liked more reactions from the characters, more consequences, maybe more in between storytelling. Whether it's the Union formation in the movie, the strike, all that. They didn't really go into more detail after that, how it unfolded and whatnot. It's just back to the mines. Okay,
Well,
now we have layoffs. Now it's doom. And then the movie just needed some more to bridge it all together, I think, instead of just sequence to sequence to sequence.
Well,
Um,
again, that's because that's how the book is done. You know, the Union, the whole idea of the Union, I didn't really get a full feel for that happening until chapter 33 of the book, because this is where it read like Davy was a long time in London with not much to show except knowledge of what was going on in the unions up there, and sending reports down to our branch. I did most of the letter writing, and I was able to see the Union having strength as from the flow of my pen. So this is the first time you really get a feel of like, okay, the Union's beginning to form. There's backlash, there's pushback, and then after that, they don't really mention it so much. So it's just like that's a problem with the source material. And also, given the what you were saying, like there's a lot happening, but at the same time, not really. Again, like here's a sequence that was also in the book where one of the characters comes running in while the characters are having breakfast, and she's like, "Dada, the turkeys have gone." And then the father's like, "Gone, girl? Where then?" And then she's like, "The door is broken, and there are feathers on the ground." And the father's like, "Oh, well, let us have breakfast first, then we shall see." And then one of the characters goes, "Will I go for the police?" And then the father's like, "Police? Why should we invite police? I'll be my own police while I have my health and strength." At the breakfast, we were all quiet, for there was a look in my father's face where we all knew well. Indeed, I would rather have seen 100 police than that look. So it's just like, here's an example of a piece of action unfolding. They stole our turkeys! And then the father's like, what are you gonna do? Let me finish breakfast first.
Where's my breakfast?
Yeah, and I'm like, what?
Breakfast.
Okay, this is the part of the book where things are starting to go downhill, like their lifestyle. Like life is becoming harder. So, and some dude stole their turkeys. And he's like, what are you gonna do? I'm sorry, I mean, later on, he confronts the neighbor and he beats the shit out of him. However, it's like, you would expect that to be a more immediate reaction, but it's not. And that's how a lot of the plotting is done. It's very aloof. It's very like, here's the thing that happens. We're going to talk about nonsense for a while. And then when I was watching the film, I'm like, there's no surprise this is wasting my time, because the book was wasting my time. Like, they're just like, whoop, 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 whoop. I'm like, can we get to the point, please?
They beat up that neighbor like the teacher.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's different in the book, but in the movie, man, that teacher he's a trash.
I think they did.
No business being a teacher, but I mean, obviously it wasn't uncommon at that time for corporal punishment from teachers. And I know my folks have even talked about, students getting caned back in the day. So pretty common practice worldwide back in the day, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But I love the follow-up scene to that, though. The awesome scene when the teacher's getting knocked out by the boxing instructor. What's his name? Bondo, I think. And then Bondo's brother says, "No aptitude for knowledge," after he knocks him out. That shit cracked me up.
Yeah,
that was definitely a funny part. And there are bits of humor in this film. Not a whole lot, but there's a few pockets of it, and that was one effective one. I thought I probably laughed a couple times in the movie. That was one.
Yeah, I can't recall anything where, I mean, there's a lot of of the mining, the actual mine. That's the stuff that stood out to me the most, especially when we get to the climax, and the climax being where they're in the middle of mining and there's a cave-in that happens. So a lot of the miners get out, but of course the main character's father is still down there. So they go down there and he's like trapped in between these big boulders or whatever. And he dies, and they pull him out, and it's like a big sad scene and stuff like that. Of course, I felt nothing because I didn't care, but it was like that's a beautifully shot scene. I give him that.
Yeah, it was a very sad scene, very intense. They'd already lost one brother in the mines earlier in the movie, right?
They did, yeah. They lose a lot of. They lose brothers in the book too. A couple of them move away to England, so
they moved as well. Yeah. In this film, actually, they were talking about moving to the States. I kind of felt that so totally different movie, and not just because there's mines in it. But remember that movie October Sky?
Never seen it.
You never saw that movie? That rocket movie with Jake Gyllenhaal?
I've seen the poster, but I've never seen the movie.
Oh wow, okay, it's a good movie. I recommend it. But that takes place in a mining town, right? And but in that film, you feel like there's like an aura of sadness in the town. Like, sure, the mother in that movie is trying to mask it with warmth, being a warm mother and whatnot, but there's this cover, this darkness that is around, and the miners are obviously professional and proud, and the mines have helped the town and all that, but that aura of despair is lingering, and you kind of feel it in that movie. In this movie, you don't really get much of that. It's kind of like everyone seems to be okay with the situation. Obviously, there's issues with the strike, but no major complaints until the pay cut, right? And it seems kind of less realistic, and which kind of makes the film a little bit less believable, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of my minor issues with this film. I was like, it's a bit strange, and it's also kind of sad too, just like in that film, October Sky, and this film, the kid has a promising future. He's educated, he's smart, he could go to college on a scholarship, just like in this film. But has to go to the mines. That's what family does. That's what the town does, and
you
get trapped in this cycle, and that's pretty awful and very sad. And because especially when you're, so many doors are opening up, and your future is very bright, and you can choose a different path, and so that was reminded me of that a little bit, and then also but yeah, some of these things in this movie, I think they did really well and conveyed some powerful sentiment here and there.
Yeah, but that's largely because of the performances and the directing, because when you really look at the award show as well, it didn't even win an Oscar for Best Writing in either category. It was only nominated for one. Citizen Kane rightfully won Best Oscar for Screenplay, which is the only Oscar it won. And when it comes to the adaptation, it didn't even win that. It was a different movie called Here Comes Mr. Jordan. So, yeah, that says a lot, I feel.
Yeah.
It's just like, nah, the writing sucks. It's a pretty picture, though. We'll give it that. We'll give
True, yeah. And like you said, the performances were actually pretty good for the most part. I thought so. But
well, yeah, one of the actors won a Best Actor in that. Was it Donald Crisp?
Yeah, I don't know all the siblings' name. I know Ivor, right? He was the eldest, who was married to Bronwyn or whatever her name was, and then the eldest sibling. He's the one who died in the mine later on.
Yeah.
And then the other ones, they kind of all blend, That's why, I was saying earlier, take a brother or two away out of this movie, like.
They could have, yeah. They couldn't have stuck. I think they were just sticking too closely to the source material, but this is the first instance where I was just like, it's okay to editorialize. It's okay to take away stuff and remove stuff and all that stuff. There are going to be films that we're going to see later on in this Best Picture series where they did just that, and the film was way better for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because oftentimes you hear, like, the book is better than the movie. No, I'm starting to see, like, no, sometimes the movie is better, actually.
For sure, yeah.
And I feel like
a lot of us have a habit of saying that, and because there is truth to it, that a lot of times the novel or the book is better than the film.
Well, the reason for that is
sometimes
because,
definitely not always the case.
Well, that's because a lot of times the book has more detail, and because you have more detail, you have more context for certain events, and whatever event that happens in the book, you see more of it, and you see less of it in the film, and whatever, and you have to hack things up to fit in a neat little hour, 30-minute, 2-hour time frame. But
Correct. And
sometimes
we
that's
typically are more critical of the film too. If you read the book, you're going to be more critical of the film because you're like, oh, I know this book, or maybe a fan of a book, and then you see the film and you're like, oof, that's a problem. That's a problem. This isn't right. This isn't so.
that's if you like the book. But in this case, because I did not like the book, and frankly, I
All
don't like
right.
the film either, I do feel like the film is better because they do streamline certain things in the film and making some things easier to understand. And like I said, with the pencil box thing, it goes on and on and
Yeah.
on in the book. But in the film, it's like it happens in like what, a couple of minutes? And
Yeah. I mean, that whole bullying sequence is not that long, and then the wooden pencil block shatters or breaks or whatever, and then he's like, all right, that's it. They fight or
I'm gonna
whatever.
kick
And
your ass. Yeah, I mean, like,
you could call it a fight, I guess.
yeah, well, the first one. Then after that, they fight for real with their shirts off, I think, right? And that's when the
Yeah.
teacher comes in and canes them, or canes Hugh. So, I mean, like, those moments, I still remember those moments because I'm like, visually, it's, especially when you have all the school kids, it goes to what I was saying earlier about, the sheep herder corralling all the sheep. He does that with the
Yeah.
kids, too, because that event, it goes ba, 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 ba. It's like bully comes in, takes a pencil box. The other little kid goes behind him. He's on all fours. So that way the big bully pushes Hugh, tumbles over, and then he breaks the
Yeah.
little pencil box. That is a beautifully constructed sequence if you really look at it. It's just like, this is
Yeah.
very well choreographed. And it's,
It is, yeah.
and it's
realistic
also,
too, I think.
it's also with kids. It's just like, that is to me like impressive to be able to do
Yeah.
all that with a kid. It felt like a real fight for the most part, I feel, especially when they
Yeah,
come back
I
together
agree, yeah.
and they fought,
Yeah.
shirtless. And I was just like, oh, okay. I could see this happening. A sequence
Yeah.
like that is very difficult to pull off. And only John Ford, I feel like, could have been able to pull that off and make it look realistic.
Perhaps, yeah. I think I also, one thing I noticed, I mean, one kid is a bully, sure, but the real bully is the teacher.
Yeah.
And there is also a dynamic with the kid when the teacher's about to cane him. Even the bully, the kid's like, bite down on this because, you're going to get caned.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a sympathy there and a little bit of a code of sorts, I guess. And
Yeah, it
some
is.
sort of,
But also, it's story progression because then you lead on to the next thing where the adults find out and they're like, all right, we're going to get kicked this guy's ass.
yeah.
It's actual story progression, so which again is in the book, but it just takes forever. And I feel like if you streamline it more and get to the point in the film, you're just like, okay, it feels like the story's actually going somewhere, at least for a little bit, and then you're going back to kind of like going nowhere.
It's yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying. It's sequence, then sequence, and it's basically like this just happened, and then this just happened. This happened. Aw, this happened. Yay! This happened. Aw, that's sad and awful. Oh, look, movie over. That's it.
Yeah, it's just like, and then
Oh.
this, and then this, and then this, or at least in that little
You know,
sequence, it's
you-
just more like this happens, therefore this happens, which means this happens,
Yeah.
culminating to this event happening. So it's just like it feels like a natural progression, but yeah, but at the end of the day, when it comes to this particular film, it's just like, should this thing have won Best Picture? No, absolutely not. If this film had not won Best Picture, no one would remember this. The only people that would remember this are the people who read the book. Like, people that love reading books, because it's still a popular book even to this day, among, people that like this kind of literature. Because I think the book itself is considered a realist literature, coming of age for sure. So, I mean, among people that like watching films, this thing is just, man, I would say after coming off Rebecca, and I really did not like that film, this compared to that,
Ooh, Rebecca.
I think this film is slightly better than Rebecca because of the fact that there
Yeah.
are interesting scenes, there are interesting events that happen. You do get a feel for the town ultimately, the struggles, the poverty, in the very beginning too, when you get to the Hugh household, the Morgan household, I think is their surname. Like
Yeah.
they're living it up really good, and you're like, you need to work, but oh my god, they slashed our wages. We're gonna get out of this house, Dad, because you're not for us. We have to organize and whatever. And then towards the end of the film, like a lot of their house is stripped bare. They're just really struggling to make ends meet. So you do really feel for these people, and
That's
that's
because they were all putting their money together, right? So they
Yeah.
all
and
were
without
6 brothers there, and they were all working in the mines, and so
Yep.
you really see the ups and downs of the family in that town, and I like the fact that it goes into socioeconomic elements and even religion and hardship and all this other stuff, and then the coming of age story and then
Mhm.
bullying and all this. They do have a lot of elements in the film that It's just like I said, it's just kind of disjointed. It didn't explain enough why things happened to be. Why did this come to be? Why is this the case? And it
Yeah,
just kind of
it's just like an afterthought. It's kind of reminds me of Cimarron, where the book and definitely the movie, it's more interested in the backdrop and the sets and the town than the
right.
actual characters. This is the exact same thing,
That's
except a
true.
mining town instead of a
Yeah,
western town. So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, like, and also in the book, talking about religiosity, there is a lot of religious talk in the book too. So, of course,
Hmm.
this is the 1800s, so this is what was important to these people: working, going to church, eating. Just like that. That's all.
Eating,
Yeah.
very important.
I mean, there are a couple of scenes in the film too where they're eating like a big, I don't know, like a bird of some kind or
Roast.
something, like a roast. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if any of
Yeah,
the
actually, it was good. That's early. The one scene early in the movie that was good. I was like, "Ooh, that looks good." I was like, "Oh, that looks
I
not
was
overcooked. It looks proper." I mean,
I was thinking the same too. I was actually thinking like, oh man, I wonder how they cooked back in the day. My mind was going elsewhere.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my god.
And there was plenty of beer in the movie too. When the
Oh, I love that scene in the beginning
boxing,
actually. Yeah.
oh yeah, with the singing and
Yeah, the guy puts the
the
beer. They
minister
open the
shows up.
keg and then he puts the beer in the
Yeah,
hat and he puts it on as soon as he gets in the house, like, "Rrr," and he forgot he filled it with
yeah.
beer. That was good. I was like, oh, this is good. I hope the movie's good, and it wasn't. But
The minister shows up and they're kind of trying to be discreet initially, and then they're like, "Ah, to hell with it." And they start singing and drinking.
yeah,
And
that I wish the film
yeah,
needed more of that because that was
right.
an element of humanity that was missing. Yeah, we got the misery, we got that plain as day, but we needed to have, I guess you could say, hope, like a lot of the
Yeah,
human spirit and condition of even though times are tough, we will persevere. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Going with Gone with the Wind a couple of movies back, I mean, you get to really feel that in the film and especially in the book. You really feel that these characters are struggling. They lost everything and they're trying to build their wealth back up. They're trying to build themselves back up. So there is a struggle there and you really feel it. It's very cathartic and oh, it's there. Here it's just like it's there. You don't really feel it beyond that. It's just like, yeah, people are starving and there's a union happening and it's causing a lot of ruckus, but yeah, what are you gonna do? And as a result, I feel nothing in the end.
Yeah,
Isn't that the
nothing at
worst?
all.
Isn't that the worst emotion? Just feeling nothing.
Yeah,
Ultimately, when it comes to ratings, out of a 10, I give this a 4. There are some scenes that are interesting. There are a lot that are not. There's a lot of meandering and a lot of things that are not really happening for the most part. There are a couple of interesting scenes here and there. There are a couple of interesting, beautifully photographed scenes by John Ford, but ultimately, this is a forgettable film, and I probably wouldn't recommend it.
I'm actually gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Thought the movie was okay. It's not a bad film at all, and I don't know if I'd recommend watching it. I'd probably, I don't know, even Citizen Kane that year. That's also not a film for everybody, to be honest. I
It
would
isn't.
recommend it for people who like film, and but I'd probably recommend Maltese Falcon over these two movies, but that's just me.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie 6 out of 10. It's not bad. It had its moments. I think it's fair to say it's a little disappointing considering it won Best Picture, but it's not a bad film. And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Maltese Falcon is, like you said, it kickstarted the noir genre. That's kind of a film for anyone who likes film. Citizen Kane, yeah, it's not for everyone, but it is a film for people who love film. It's a case study
yeah.
at the very least. This film, I, I don't know what this film is for, honestly. John Ford fans,
John Ford fans, yeah. I mean, there's a
Welsh people, people
there's
that are in the mining community. I don't know who this
I
film
mean,
is
or
for.
a specific story about
Working class people, I guess.
family ups and downs if you want
Yeah, but you can watch The Grapes of
heartwarming
Wrath.
and sentiment and certain
Yeah, but you can
elements, then you'll find it in here.
Yeah, but you can watch The Grapes of Wrath. John Ford did that film like the
True.
year prior, and I think that's a
You
better
won for it
film.
too, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a better film than this one.
Fair, fair.
Yeah, I haven't read the book for that, but that film was pretty good. This one, no. So,
Yeah. That was a year before, I think, right?
yeah. No, it's like I said, the year before.
Year before, yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into this episode. We'll be seeing you in the next one. I don't know anything about this next Best Picture winner. Seems kind of weird, but hopefully it's not terrible.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Check us out next time.
See ya.